Imagine if in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, all the crazy and endgame challenges, boss gauntlets and stuff were fought in the overworld instead of the mind-numbingly boring VR simulation rooms, guided by Chadley. One of the biggest tragedies and injustices of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to me is actually the overworld and how they used it, or I guess you could say the lack of using it. In the original game, we saw many of the game's super bosses appearing and challenges happening in the overworld. Ruby Weapon buried in the desert outside of the Gold Saucer, trying to navigate our life around the Midgar Zolom. Emerald Weapon jump scaring us when we go underwater in the submarine. The Ultimate Weapon flying aimlessly and us having to chase it to a final location. Diamond Weapon taking 6 to 7 business days to make landfall. I mean, you get the idea. It's all connected in there. And yes, most of those things are coming in part 3. I'm just praying that it's not going to be a VR simulation. Rebirth has an interesting overworld that Kid Me would die to see and experience. I mean, the scale and being able to navigate the planet with this party is all I ever wanted to see since before the Final Fantasy VII Remake was even announced. Knowing this was coming in Rebirth, I was excited to know that we would be physically traveling through it, and it's not something chapter-based, where they automatically jump us forward to a new location at the end of every chapter, or functioning like the Final Fantasy Tactics world map. That would break my heart. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, I understand why we had VR challenges in the first place, because the entire game is story-based, and it's locked to Midgar, so I wasn't too bothered by this. But in Rebirth, when we're able to travel the world, fast travel to different locations, capture and use unique chocobos to now roam the open plains or scaling various mountainscapes, I thought we'd be able to get that. Sadly, no. We still need to go to Chadley to access a VR hub, and it kind of sucks. Let's be real. Fighting the rulers of the Outer Worlds in the open world or the crazy challenges there would have been more ideal. Even if, let's say, it's VR or Chadley based, we could have still gone to a location and accessed these events in person. And then you have them appear with the VR helmet that we clearly use, or a real world event that exists there. The VR stages leave a lot to be desired, let's be real. Playing hours of this in Remake to then go to Rebirth to play even more of this, but slightly modified, is pretty annoying. Not to mention, the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth version of this is much slower to navigate the menus and access different fights. I mean, look how fast I can access missions in Remake's VR compared to Rebirth, and the in-between fight-to-fight transitions are even slower in Rebirth too. In the overworld map for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we have locations that we can go to and retry challenges that we've already done, and you can hold triangle to redo any of the final world bosses. So I feel like the VR challenges could have, at the very least, been done in this way in the open world instead, where we can go ahead and retry them by traveling to different locations. Filling the world with all of this stuff would have made discovery and the sense of traversing impact us way more. Also, devs, if you guys are watching this, less HUD and quest markers. We need things to actually be missable in this game. I know that we had the relationship and bond system being strictly based on side missions and needing us to know where they are to do them, but my hope for part 3 is we do away with the overuse of the markers and hand-holding and allow players to explore and miss things. I get it, these days with budgets, it's painful to spend millions of dollars creating something for only people to just miss it or never even encounter it. But quite frankly, doing this will actually make players replay the game more often, as with word of mouth, discovery and finding things later are enough to make players want to jump back in between conversations with friends or even YouTube videos showing off cool fights or items that you might have missed. The original Final Fantasy VII was like this, as well as many RPGs, tons of missable things. Hell, my first 2 times playing Final Fantasy VII as a child, I had no idea Yuffie or Vincent were actually unlockable party members. So this made every new playthrough very exciting and fresh, finding new things when talking to friends about their experiences being different from mine. Now, I know obviously we can't make characters missable, especially when you gotta pay actors to voice them and include them in cutscenes and then remove them from cutscenes, but I wish that we could at least make content missable or hidden, like some really good weapons or insane accessories, like the Knights of the Round Cave, Mine Materia, Master Materias, all things of that sort. And again, there is still possibilities for this to exist within Part 3, but they really haven't showed me, at least as of yet, that they're going to be trying to do that. I really hope they do. I also know Knights of the Round is probably going to have a huge side quest element just like Gilgamesh did, and I'm totally okay with that. But if they can find a way to do it, less hand-holding markers, giving us more sense of discovery, this is the stuff that gamers really want. Square Enix needs to understand that the most popular and beloved games these days are successful because of this. Look at Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild, Expedition 33 even, which Square Enix devs absolutely love. Every person's playthrough with those games is wildly different, and seeing what other people find or talk about is enough to keep people playing and coming back, and that's what Square Enix has been missing. Some of my Picto guides from Expedition 33 are still circulating with new comments from people who have been playing the game since launch, not even knowing that some of these weapons, Pictos, and damage modifiers exist. It's the gift that keeps on giving with these kinds of games. Bro, give me a random useless item in the beginning of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 that if I held onto it till the very end, I can use that to unlock the ultimate weapon or like a fusion blade or some shit. Please. We got Yoshi P when talking about Final Fantasy 16 saying they were worried about newcomers coming to the game and not being able to enjoy the difficult fights or finding fights difficult. So they added in accessibility rings, which are entirely optional. But if you think about it, most popular games these days are some of the hardest games that continue to blow your cheeks wide open until you triumph, and then that sense of reward is addicting to where previous pain doesn't even matter anymore. It's that sense of accomplishing something that you were stuck on for hours is what majority of the mainstream games now that you guys are chasing are doing. But let's be real, you all are kind of missing the mark on this when it comes to Square Enix products. I do hope that the devs address this in some way, as they've already stated that due to fan feedback, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 will be more concise, which more than anything else ties into the way that the story elements are being delivered. They elaborated further, saying that this does not mean side content will be reduced or even condensed, but more that the overall game will be better paced, which is very much needed. My other big misses with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the way that emotional and impactful deep lore story moments are handled. Well, they're not really handled too great. Some of these moments we've talked about a lot, and I feel like we need to re-mention them here again in this video, like the emotional moments like from Dyne and Barrett's scene. It gets interrupted, and it's also quite a lot changed from what the OG was, but we full-on jump into an ass-slap and Palmer fight packed with comedic moments when we really could have gotten a cutaway or fade to black scene to really let Barrett's moment wrap up before jumping into the next thing. The same thing can be said for Red 13 and Seto, a moment that I was extremely excited for, but was unfortunately interrupted and cut short. Almost immediately to the point where the music from the scene fades so quickly to jump into Gi Natak. It's kind of jarring seeing it jump that way. And by the way, I really love Gi Natak and the expansion of the Gi lore. I think what its implications could mean for the story are some of the best stuff that have come up from the remake series and understanding the world more. But at the same time, why not let that Seto moment wrap up a little bit longer with the fade to black, or just walking away and then encountering this next situation by the elevator. Now, for story spoilers, be aware, but in Chapter 13, guys, we experienced some of the worst offenders of this. The Temple of the Ancients has so many explanations and story moments that come towards the end of the chapter, but we are subject to almost 2 to 3, maybe even 4 hours of non-stop puzzling, character and item swapping between menus, and boss fights that when we finally access these moments here, our brains are kind of fried, almost like too much to the point where it's hard to pay attention to what's going on here, and it's one of the worst paced chapters in the game. And I don't know how you can make Final Fantasy VII Remake 18 chapters, but Rebirth is only 14. These definitely should have been split up more and given more thought as to how you're going to be pacing these scenes together. Chapter 13 has tons of great information, but it comes at a very exhausting point of the story, which I'm glad Hamaguchi stated they'll be more concise for the story, which is again what they needed to do, because they very well do the same exact thing again in Chapter 14, where the final chapter, we swap the party almost 6 times, have only 2 opportunities to adjust materia, and if you do happen to adjust them and then die, you have to then readjust it again every single time. And yes, this is all the while important story and lore implications are battering away at you, to the point where Rebirth requires multiple viewings and replays of this moment, but to understand what's going on. But the main issue is nobody wants to replay these parts as many times as needed to fully get what's going on. So please, yes, make it more concise, spread these things out, and give more story moments and opportunities to breathe. I just want Part 3 to be the best game it can be in the series, and criticisms like this being constructive is where we should be directing it. There are plenty more, of course, but I want to hear from you guys in the comments below what you would like to see implemented or changed when it comes to Part 3. There is no perfect game, but there are definitely improvements that we can suggest and make to get pretty close. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a massive game, and for completionists, it can absolutely burn you out if you try to completely and immediately knock everything out at once, which is why I've been kind of taking my time, and I feel like I'm pretty close to wanting to jump back into it soon. At every 10,000 new subscribers, I think we're going to do a Final Fantasy Platinum. So at 180k subs, I think it's the perfect time for us to jump back into Rebirth, plus as a fun project. Also playing some Final Fantasies that I've never played before, like everyone's favorites and critically acclaimed Final Fantasy II. The Final Fantasy Tactics Platinum video is being edited right now, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. Just make sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new. More Final Fantasy VII Remake videos are on the way, and you don't want to miss them. My name is BltzZ, and thanks for watching.